it's your boy Luke here for our round 1 prize picks targets for the WGC Dell Technologies match play. Didn't know if we were going to have this video this week. The props didn't drop until this afternoon, but was really glad to see them out there. We have a new format, a whole new category to talk about when it comes to fantasy scoring, and because it's not really set up for the fade or for the attacking plays type of aspect when it comes to the payout structure, I do think it might be lucrative to target here over the first day or so until they go ahead and get it ironed out. So a lot to play for. Obviously last week at the Valspar was a lot of fun. I was there in person. We profited on 3 of our 4 cards on the weekend, so can't complain there, and looking to roll it into some profit this weekend. So without further delay at all, let's go ahead and hop right on into it. Alrighty guys, so on the screen you can see the prop board for the WGC and only one prop category to choose from, which is going to be fantasy score, which is ideally going to be players that you hope to do well here and score fantasy points and win by a certain amount of holes. Essentially their score, quote unquote, for the match is going to be how many holes they win by. So if they end up winning by 2, they'll end up scoring 2 fantasy points. And down here, if they end up just winning by 1 point or 1 hole, whatever we want to look at it, it's going to be 1 fantasy score. So if you think somebody's going to lose and they have a positive fantasy score projection, you would want to be taking the under. And even on some of these guys up here at 2 or even 1.5 fantasy score, if you think it's going to be a close match or decided by 1 point, you'd also want to be fading them and taking the under. And if you have seen the match play over the years or you're familiar with this format, you know that there's chaos year in and year out. Last year, only one number 1 seed out of the 16 groups ended up getting through group play, and you ended up seeing a ton of the 60 and even 50 seed players make it to the Elite 8 and Final 4. In the end, usually an elite player ends up winning this golf tournament, but you're going to see a ton of the top end players lose to some surprising names. I mean, Antoine Rosner winning the group last year comes to mind, Eric Van Rooyen, Mackenzie Hughes, all names that you wouldn't expect to go out there and win a group at such a big time event. So with that being said, you're going to have to be careful with who you're taking here. So let's do this on an individual basis. A lot of these picks are just as much about the player that they're going against as the player themselves. Because of course this is match play. It's a different beast than going out there and taking apart a stroke play event. Let's start off with Kevin Kisner, who will be playing against Mark Leishman in his round 1 matchup. I'm going to be taking the over here. I expect him to win this matchup, and no matter the margin of victory, he's going to be giving us the over here. Of course, if they end up tying or he loses, that would side towards the under here and towards Mark Leishman. But if you know anything about Kevin Kisner, he's one of the best match play players in the world. He's won this event, he's finished runner-up here, and pretty much every time he tees it up over here in Austin, Texas, ends up at least getting out of the group stage. Mark Leishman is no slouch himself, of course also very solid with the short game, a very creative player himself, but when you're matched up against the match play god, it's going to be hard to fade that guy. So I do like him there, the over at 0.5 fantasy score. If it was at 1 fantasy score, I would be much more hesitant to take somebody like Kevin Kisner, but as is, I do think it's more than a fair enough line. Next up, we're going to be going with Matthew Fitzpatrick, and we're going to be taking the under here because I do think that Tommy Fleetwood should be the favorite player. He's been in great form over the last 2 to 3 weeks. You've seen multiple top 10s from Tommy Fleetwood. He's usually very solid during the Florida swing, so maybe that wasn't so much surprising, but he was also very solid with the ball striking over there on the European Tour. We do have some rudimentary shots gained metrics from over there, and the guy was absolutely lighting it up, posting top 5, top 10s over there in the DP World Tour. And in general, no matter where this guy's teeing up, he's playing well. So this is even more so about Tommy Fleetwood than it is Matthew Fitzpatrick. Of course, Matthew Fitzpatrick was in the top 3 of the golf tournament last week before an unfortunate end to the par 3 and hole number 16 there as well. Kind of derailed him towards the end, but overall was still a very solid week. Tommy Fleetwood's also shown a lot of prowess in match play. Last year had a hole-in-one, ended up making it to the playoffs, had a very solid record, and overall has a winning record in this format. So it's not really so much a fade Matthew Fitzpatrick as it is confidence in Tommy Fleetwood's ability, but that's also a prop that I'm willing to take a look at. The next prop I have is Joaquin Neiman. We're taking the over against Maverick McNeely. McNeely is a first-timer to this type of format, so we have no idea the type of prowess that he brings to the table. We know that he's got some skills we like the power off the tee. We also like the putter on some of these POA or bent grass surfaces, but unfortunately these are a Bermuda grass hybrid surface, so not necessarily a surface we've seen them have all that much success on. And overall, first timers to this complex track with a ton of undulation on these greens, a lot of strategy that goes into playing around Austin Country Club, tend to have a little bit of trouble. I mean, guys like Colin Morikawa went 0-3 last year. Victor Hovland went 1-2. Guys like Corey Connors go 0-3. Just a whole list. I could keep going on and on and on. Really solid players that you would have expected to do a whole lot better. They really flamed out their first time here. So Joaquin Neiman, he's played here before. He's, of course, a fiery character, has been firing in all cylinders, had the win over there just a few weeks ago at Riviera. So somebody who's coming in with form. It has a cupcake matchup here. I like taking the over at 0.5 fantasy score because all he has to do is go out there and win this matchup. And now lastly, the two fades that could end up burning us, but I really do think they're great plays here because the lines are just too high. To have anybody priced at 1.5 or even 2 fantasy score is just too much for this format. There's chaos year in and year out, and for somebody to win by 3 or even 4 points at the end of a match is rare. It's usually getting down to at least the 16th, 17th, or 18th hole. And if you end up getting a 16 and you end up pushing, right, and winning by 2, that would be pushing for somebody like Jon Rahm. Of course, for Colin Morikawa, that would hit the over there with 2, but that's still asking a lot, especially considering their matchups. Let's go ahead and start this off with Colin Morikawa, where I'm taking the under at 1.5 fantasy score. Robert McIntyre ended up winning his group last year. This is somebody who's an extremely good, talented player over there on the European Tour. He's a top 5 player on that tour. In his world golf ranking, he's a top 35 player in the world. Has been on a steady increase with that number over the years, I should say. He's going up the list, has been steadily going up it over the years. Just solid off the tee. He's a very good approach player and also a very good putter. The one problem he has is around the green. Thing is, so is Colin Morikawa. That's really his one bugaboo. So for both of these players, of course, Colin Morikawa is the more pedigree, the more acclaimed player, but to have him favored by over 1.5 fantasy score is really the problem I have. I see this being an extremely close affair, if not Robert McIntyre taking home this event. I have it more of like a 55-45 split rather than the 65-35 split that it seems like PrizePicks has here. So somebody that I will be taking the under on, and of course that does help us with boosting our payout here. And lastly, we have Jon Rahm. I'm taking the under against Sebastian Munoz. I do think this, Jon Rahm ends up getting the win here. But like I said, if it gets the whole 17 and he ends up winning by 2, that's still pushing at the very least. And that would be a very solid performance for Jon Rahm. Again, winning by 2 or 3 points in this format is rare, and you don't see it all that often. So for Jon Rahm, I will be taking the under here. Sebastian Munoz is an aggressive player, extremely, extremely good with the iron play when he has his best stuff. So overall, I'm expecting this to be a close, hard-fought match. And again, much like Robert McIntyre against Colin Morikawa, I could see Sebastian Munoz winning this match. Like, it would not mind blow me. You saw it just so many times last year, these upsets happening, particularly when it's a player like Munoz that is as hot with the putter as he is. He can get nuclear hot in that category. And of course, like I said, with the irons. So I think there's a lot of risk here for an upset. Perhaps this is the 15 seed that ends up beating the 2 seed that we see for March Madness year in and year out. But I'm expecting madness here from round 1. And if we put all these props into a 5-leg parlay, this is the only parlay I'm going with for tomorrow. I'm not going to overthink it. Just doing the flex play, that'll net us a 12.5x return. So hopefully we can go ahead and bring that home, or at the very least get 4 or 3 picks correct. That is all I've got here for the PrizePicks targets. Of course, I didn't know this was going to drop, so I apologize. It's coming out a little bit later. Had to get some of my DraftKings stuff out there. Of course, my own lineups for this week, my bets and stuff. But glad I was able to get something out here for you guys. Before we go on and get out of here, go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your favorite prop on the board is. It doesn't have to be something I covered. It could be completely off my radar, but go ahead and let me know down below what that is. Going to have hopefully more content throughout the weekend. Hopefully they continue to do these props for the match play. There's going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday slate. So going to be 5 days of slates to go on. So really looking forward to that as well. Some extra golf to cover, lots of matches, lots of golf to be played for these players. And just overall, it's a lot of fun to watch on TV. I think in person would be a little bit stressful because you're just watching one match at a time, kind of hard to get an idea of what's going on. But when we have the telecast, we're able to just sit at home, sit back, drink a beer, watch some golf. It's probably some of the best entertainment on TV. So looking forward to that a whole lot. Best of luck with all of your prop hunting here for round 1, guys, and let's get this cash.